Ballin on this Mr. Ballin Saturday. I probably got a video for y'all Monday, and after that, y'all ain't gonna get no video until probably that next week. Not gonna lie to you, I gotta do something next with this week coming up. And plus, they give y'all more time to catch up. I know some people that probably don't get notifications or whatever, but then I gotta get another microphone too, though. So you feel me? Let's go ahead and get into it. Subscribe to my second channel. Description down below, or y'all can wait to the end and just go straight to it. That being said, let's go ahead and get into some Mr. Ballin Saturday.
One late night in the summer of 1974, a 30-year-old man named Fred stood inside of a loud casino in Las Vegas, feeling incredibly nervous. He knew what he was about to do was a horrible idea. In fact, he didn't even know if he had the guts to try it. Fred grabbed a huge wad of cash out of his pocket, and as he looked at it, he thought about the reason he was here. So Fred had actually flown to Las Vegas on a whim after a bad meeting with a group of investors. So Fred had founded this small company 3 years earlier, and he really needed a loan from these investors, but they had said no. Fred had actually already lost over $13 million to this point, and so the investor said, look, like your track record is not good enough. We're not giving you any more money. And this was a huge problem.
And another thing, like, you gotta make sure your face card good. Like, you can't do bad deals, expect good. You know what I'm saying? That type of shit get around to like head people. Like, especially casinos. Like, casinos don't play that shit. Like, they all connected, nigga. They all talk.
For Fred, because right now, in all of his company accounts, he had a total of $5,000. And at a minimum, he needed to pay his fuel bill for his company, which was $24,000. And that bill was due soon, so he didn't have enough money to cover it. And besides the fuel bill, he also didn't have any money to make payroll. So basically, Fred did not have any more money. And if he didn't find a way to find more money, he would have to file for bankruptcy, shut his business down, and lay off all of his employees. And so Fred really couldn't think of a worse fate here. He totally believed in this company. I mean, this was his baby. He'd invested all of his inheritance into it. But now it was about to collapse, unless he got really, really lucky. All around him in the casino, Fred could see gamblers hunched over slot machines and over poker tables and blackjack tables, and some people looked elated, like they were having the time of their lives. And many other people looked like they were maybe having the worst time of their lives and were on the brink of tears. Fred didn't know if he'd be celebrating or sobbing by the end of this night. All he knew is he was out of options here. He could either do nothing and just kind of accept his fate, that his business was doomed and would have to be shut down, or he could do what he was doing tonight, which was to basically take what little cash he had.
Gambling is worse than any drug addiction. Not gonna lie to you. Gambling, I used to be a gambler, like, kind of still is in the heart, but that's not, I ain't the type of gambler that spend everything. Like, let's say if I go to the store and I get a lottery ticket. If I win $100 off that lottery ticket, I'll probably pay for one more lottery ticket, then I'm going home. Like, bro, I'm not, no, hell no. Or prize picks. I'm a big, you know me, you got my socials, you know I'm a big prize pick man. Like, the highs, I won like 500 last month, and I ain't been on since, bro. I ain't gonna lie, they ain't finna get me again. I ain't finna get me, bro.
Chance, basically gambled the money he had in hopes of winning enough money to keep his business going a little bit longer. And so after taking a calming breath, Fred began walking over to a blackjack table because someone had told him that of all the games you could play in the Las Vegas casino, the game with the best odds was blackjack. Fred chose a table with an open seat.
If you know, you know.
He exchanged all his cash for chips, while he prayed that he was making the right choice here. Then, Fred began to play. For the first few hands, Fred was pretty cautious, only placing small bets. But he won all those small bets, and it kind of emboldened him. And so he began placing larger bets, and he began...
The best thing to do, I know I keep pausing, this is going to be my last time for this story, unless it's something big happens. But the best way to win at a casino is bet little. Bet little. I don't want to say bet little, but bet a little bit amount. Because when soon you start doing them big, you losing. And the house always wins at casinos. I'm telling you, the house always wins. I'm trying to tell you.
Winning those bets too. And in fact, it got to the point where he was winning so consistently that a crowd of strangers had formed behind the table just to watch Fred. But Fred wasn't even aware of the crowd behind him. He was so focused on every single hand. I mean, for him, this was like his life he was gambling with. And eventually, he got to a place where he had like a mountain of chips in front of him, and he was gambling huge sums of it all at once. And then eventually, when he had this big mountain of chips in front of him, Fred decided this was it. He was going to double down and go all in. And so he puts all these chips out, he waits, and eventually the dealer flips over their cards, and as soon as they did, the crowd around Fred, who he hadn't even noticed to this point, erupted in cheers because Fred had just won. And when the dealer pushed all the chips back over to him and he got to count how much money he had, he realized he had started with $5,000, but now had $27,000. He had gambled and won. $27,000 was just enough to pay that fuel bill and keep his company running a little bit longer. So basically exactly what Fred had hoped for had happened. And then during this extra time that Fred had basically won himself, he was able to secure $11 million in investor funding, which was enough money to finally scale up this small business into the behemoth that we know it as today. Fred went from being a guy betting his last chips at a casino to now being a multi-billionaire. Fred's full name is Fred Smith.
FedEx!
The little company that he scaled up on a gamble was FedEx.
Hey, that's crazy.
I have a major announcement. BALLEN Studios, the home of the strange, dark, and mysterious, today has launched another brand new show. It's called Late Nights with Nexpo. Here, look, because I with long strip walked into a house.
Bro, I did not expect the FedEx, bro. I did not. I seen the FedEx on the plane. I'm like, FedEx? What the fuck? That's tough. I ain't gonna lie. That's tough. That's tough. I'm calling my mom and tell her that shit. That's tough. I ain't gonna lie. Yeah, y'all know my mom be watching my videos too, though. You know what I'm saying?
Party in the Hollywood Hills, which is a very exclusive and pricey neighborhood in Los Angeles, California.
Hollywood.
In this house, which was filled with people, there were all these actors and entertainers and Hollywood type people. And Norm, who was this kind of scruffy guy with long stringy hair and who had no experience in the entertainment industry, knew he did not fit in here at all. In fact, Norm never would have been at a party like this if not for what had happened to him just a few hours earlier. So that afternoon, Norm had gotten into a fight with his boss at the motorcycle shop where he worked. Now, Norm and his boss never got along, but they managed to coexist for the most part, except today, this small argument had turned into a huge argument that turned into Norm getting fired. And so after getting fired, Norm left the shop and just began aimlessly walking around Los Angeles until he wound up running into one of his friends. Over the course of this conversation where Norm's like, yeah, I got fired, not doing too good. The friend was like, oh, well, tonight there's going to be this big party up in the Hollywood Hills. Why don't you come along? And Norm, who was feeling admittedly pretty down after being fired, decided, what the heck? I'll go to this party because maybe that will boost my spirits. And so now here he was. And so Norm went and found his friend in the house party. And for a little while, the party was pretty great. I mean, Norm felt kind of uncomfortable, didn't really know anybody. It was kind of awkward, but it was fine. Him and his friend were drinking and chatting, and his friend was introducing him to some people, and it was all good. Except Norm just couldn't shake the anger he felt about getting fired. Not only at the fact that he was now unemployed, which was a huge problem, but he also just felt mad at his boss. Like, how dare his boss do this to him? And so to cope with this, Norm just began drinking really heavily, like way more than anybody else at this party.
Damn.
And before long, Norm was completely plastered drunk. But it would turn out, getting totally smashed did not calm Norm down. In fact, if anything, it only made him more blind with rage about what had happened to him. And so naturally what he did is he departs his friend and pushes through the crowd of people, and he goes up to the second floor where there was this balcony that overlooked where basically everybody in the house was. And Norm, who's slurring his speech and he's totally a mess, he screams out to the crowd of these people that he doesn't even know, these Hollywood people. Basically screams at them to stop what they're doing and listen to him. And everyone did. They turned around and looked up at this guy like, what's going on here? And Norm just begins delivering this totally angry rant that kind of didn't even make any sense. I mean, he's drunk, but he's basically ranting about how mad he is and this horrible injustice that's been done to him, and just on and on. He's just pouring out all of his emotions, and everybody's just kind of looking at him like, what is going on here? It was like a train wreck, you know? They couldn't look away. Eventually, Norman finished up his big, rambling, humiliating speech, and he stepped away from the railing, and everybody down below who, you know, had been wrapped to this point, but now was kind of like, whatever, they went back to the party, and Norm just stood up there kind of taking in the scene, and suddenly he felt a tap on his shoulder. And he turned around, and he saw there was this person he didn't recognize, and this person says to Norm, "Hey, have you ever considered acting in a play?" It would turn out that person was a Hollywood producer, and they were putting on a play in LA. And they really liked Norm's look, the whole kind of scruffy vibe, but even more as they watched him deliver that totally angry, drunken rant that he managed to get all these people to listen to, that it was obvious he had natural charisma and he could command an audience even when the audience had no idea what he was talking about. And so ultimately, this producer literally offered Norm an acting job, and Norm, who really didn't have aspirations to be an actor, but now needed a job because he had just been fired that day, you know, he's unemployed, he agreed. He said, "Okay, I'll act in your play." And so Norman would act in this play, and he would do such a good job, despite the fact that he totally was not an actor. He literally was a drunk guy at a party who randomly got recognized by some producer. But regardless, he acts in this play, and he is such a natural and does such a good job that he gets noticed by other Hollywood producers and casting directors. And before long, he lands his starring role in the mega hit TV show, The Walking Dead.
My boy!
Norm's full name is Norman Reedus.
He played on so many good movies too, though. He played on so many other good older movies. I just got done watching an older movie with him, so Tubi. I watched so many old movies, bro, like 90s, like mid-90s, 90s. It's ridiculous. I didn't know you were talking about Norm, though. Hey, my butt on bullshit in The Walking Dead, though. Y'all know I love The Walking Dead. I love me Walking Dead, man. I ain't gonna. Y'all know I love Walking Dead, man. That's crazy. Well, thank God that the dude found a bike. That's why he ride on bikes on goddamn Walking Dead. Not gonna lie. But yo, goddamn, that's tough.
One evening in the late winter of 1973, a 23-year-old mother named Tabby put her 8-month-old son and 2-year-old daughter down for naps inside of their double-wide trailer, which was parked in a small town in New England. Once her kids fell asleep, Tabby looked over at the clock. She was waiting for her husband to get home from his job as a high school teacher, and he was running late. Tabby wondered, what could be holding up her husband, and she certainly hoped he was okay, but she couldn't just call the high school to ask how he was doing because they didn't own a landline phone. They literally didn't have enough money to afford a landline phone in their trailer. In fact, they basically only had enough money to barely make ends meet. So Tabby and her husband actually had dreams of becoming professional writers. But they had found over the past few years that breaking into writing at this time in America was nearly impossible. They had gotten a few stories published here and there, but, for the most part, the only thing their writing had gotten them was a whole bunch of projection. And so as a result of this, both of them had taken day jobs to basically supplement the income that was not being generated from writing. Tabby was home with the kids, and then in the evening would work some shifts at a Dunkin' Donuts, and then her husband, in addition to being a teacher, also worked at a laundromat. But even with their 3 jobs to basically supplement the income that was not being generated from writing, Tabby was home with the kids.
I ain't gonna lie. These are disturbing as fucking masks. The gorilla, but them two, y'all have some terrible masks back in y'all day. Good Lord.
Then in the evening would work some shifts at a Dunkin' Donuts, and then her husband, in addition to being a teacher, also worked at a laundromat. But even with their 3 jobs combined, they barely made any money. Now, Tabby still held on to hope that, maybe one day she could break in and be a professional writer and have that be her primary income. But her husband, who also, had the same dream, was over time becoming increasingly more pessimistic about his opportunity to, one day just be a writer. He sort of felt like this truly was impossible, that they'd struggled forever and he wouldn't become a writer. Tabby walked to the tiny laundry room in the back of their trailer to switch their clothes from the washer to the dryer. So this room, the laundry room, actually doubled as her husband's office. And as soon as she walked back there, she saw his desk was a total mess. All around his typewriter, which sat right in the middle of the table, were all these empty beer cans and food wrappers and rejection letters from various magazines and publications. And the trash can next to the table on the ground was overflowing with crumpled up pieces of paper. Feeling very annoyed by this mess, Tabby reached down to tie up the trash bag to take it outside. But as she went to do that, she happened to glance at one of these crumpled up pieces of paper in the trash, and she skimmed a couple of sentences that were written on it, that were typed on this paper. And as soon as she did, she stopped, because there was something really interesting about this writing. Now, she knew her husband had written whatever was on this page, but generally speaking, her husband always shared with her anything he had written, and she would read everything. And there was something about this text that she knew she had not read it before. Like, this was different. Clearly he wrote it, but she had not seen this before, and so she was curious. So she pulled the paper out of the trash can and smoothed it off, and actually began reading what turned out to be this failed manuscript that her husband had thrown away, and she couldn't believe how good it was. And so it dawned on Tabby that clearly her husband had been working on this in secret, which made her wonder, like, one, why are you doing that? Why are you hiding this particular thing from me when you let me read everything else? And two, again, this is so good, why is it crumpled up and in the trash? Just then, Tabby heard the front door of the trailer open and her husband come inside. And so Tabby just took the page she was reading and walked out of the laundry room, and she held it up to her husband, and she was like, what is this? Why haven't you shown me this? And to Tabby's surprise, her husband, when he realized what she was holding, just looked totally embarrassed, like he wished she hadn't seen that. And she said to him, no, like, this is so good, what's going on here? And her husband would tell her, look, like, I started writing this thing, I didn't really know what it was going to become, but I quickly realized that I don't know enough about the subject matter, and, I'm just not talented enough to finish the story, and even if I was, like, this is too weird, it's too out there, no one would publish this. And so ultimately, he had just thrown it away and not told Tabby. And in fact, he went on to tell Tabby that in addition to this being a failed project, he really understood at this point in his career that he was a failed writer. And right now, what he really needed to do was give up writing altogether and just focus on making money for the family, something they desperately needed. Tabby could see her husband was completely serious. And so she just held up this piece of paper and she said, no, this is the one. This is the one that's
type of woman you need in your life. These are the type of women you need in your life. Not some women on Instagram showing her body to the whole world. You need a woman like that. That's a queen.
To help you break through. I know it. And you know what? Even if you don't know the subject matter, I do. I can help you with that. And together, we can make this a full-length novel. You've got to see it through. It's too good not to. And so, at Tabby's insistence, that's what her husband did. He would spend several months working with Tabby to finish this novel, and by the spring of 1974, it was done. And so, that same spring, they began shopping the manuscript around to different publishers, really having no idea how anybody was going to react. But they were both totally blown away when one of the major publishers they sent this thing to came back and said, not only will we absolutely print this book, but we'll also give you a $400,000 advance, which in today's money is $2.5 million. A massive, massive book deal by any standard. And so the young couple was totally thrilled. They took the book deal, the book got published, and with the money they got, they were able to move out of their double-wide trailer, and they were able to purchase a landline telephone. But that was only the beginning. Tabby's decision to pull that crumpled up piece of paper out of the trash can and force her husband to turn it into a novel would prove to be a good one, because her husband would go on to become arguably one of the most famous writers in the world. That story that Tabby saved from the trash can would go...
Bitch, Stephen King? Bitch, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Stephen King, really? I know this ain't Stephen King.
On to become the iconic horror novel Carrie. Tabby's husband was none other than Stephen King.
I mean Stephen King. Y'all know what I mean. Stephen King, Stephen King, same goddamn thing. Man, look, man. Hey, all three of these stories was crazy and good, man. I love when these stories be more positive than, than the outcomes of the people be dying at the end. Like, I like these type of videos, you know what I'm saying? Daryl from The Walking Dead, the FedEx man with the gambling show, how they came up. And Stephen King, man, like, I love stories like these, not gonna lie. It's plenty more videos I gotta do. I know it's another video I gotta do. I'm probably gonna do that later on tonight. And y'all just don't get it, or I might finna do it. No, I'm finna edit this video and post it for y'all, and then later on tonight, I'm just gonna go ahead and give y'all that video tomorrow. I said I was gonna wait till Monday, but I'll probably wait till Monday, drop it on them. That being said, see you when I see y'all. Love y'all. So make sure y'all subscribe to my other channel. Make sure y'all comment how y'all felt about this story. You know what I'm saying? How y'all felt about this whole video. Let's ride, man. Love y'all. Be safe.